for it.
And I'll let you know when it's up and running. Okay, we're live. We are live.
Linda,
Yes.
Representative Martin, we might want to state for the record that we're waiting for our House Chair to appear.
Absolutely. He's having some technical difficulties this morning, and
Hey, I
Representative
got it to print,
is
but
now
now
here.
it's supposed to empty the toner thing. And I'm in a meeting, so I can't do it. But anyway, progress.
Representative Landry, Senator Dill's on, but I don't know if he's still having difficulties or not. He had asked that you begin the meeting because he was having difficulties with his computer this morning.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'd just spoken with him a few minutes ago, and
I see his face, but I don't hear him. I don't know if he can hear us.
No, yesterday he had to replace a monitor totally, and he must be having that issue again. Well, good morning, welcome everybody. Here we are at IFW, the best committee in the legislature. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm Scott Landry. I'm the House Chair for this committee. And as we understand, Senator Dill's having trouble getting on. We have two bills ahead of us today, a presentation on LD 1813 and a discussion on tagging of deer. So we will get forward. Could we call on everybody to introduce themselves, starting with Representative Danny Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, folks. My name is Danny Martin. I represent House 150, located in northern Aroostook County.
Thank you. Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason. I represent District 56, the great people of Lisbon.
Thank you. Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Representative Landry. My name is Tim Terrio. I represent District 79, which is Albion, most of Benton, China, and Unity Plantation.
Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter Lyford, District 129, Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and Vesey.
Thank you. Representative Neto.
Good morning, Representative Neto. I'm Kathy Neto, and I represent the District 78, which covers Winslow and a small portion of Benton.
Good morning. Representative Alley.
Yes, sir. I represent District 138. It's got 12 towns in it. Jonesboro, Beals, Addison, Harrington, Columbia Falls, Centerville, Jonesboro, Whitneyville, and Cherryfield and Millbridge. Thank you.
Good morning. Representative Hepler.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, which is where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond.
Thank you. And Senator Black. I guess I should have done the senators first, but just the way you're sitting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Russ Black from Wilton, representing the Senate District of 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec, Belgrade, Mount Vernon, Vienna, and Fayette.
Good morning, Representative Ordway.
Yes, good morning. Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is part of the town of Standish.
Welcome. Representative John Martin.
Good morning, everyone. John Martin, House District 151, Northwestern Aroostook County.
All, and with us we have our committee clerk, Linda LaCroix, and our analyst, Julia McDonald. Any luck getting Senator Dill in? Okay, then I guess we can move right on to the public hearing on LD 1813, an act to amend the definition of oversized ATV to increase the minimum weight requirement. This will be presented by President Jackson. I did see him. Oh, there he is. Good morning, President Jackson.
Morning,
Representative Landry. Senator Dill and Representative Landry, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Troy Jackson. I have the honor of representing the good people of Northern Mercer County and Senate District 1 and serving as president of the Maine Senate. And I'll look forward to hopefully soon the time when we're in person so I can pay my tribute of being a former member of this committee. I don't know how I could do that right now virtually, but I promise I'll pay my required respects to the committee at some future date.
We'll hold you to
that. I'm here today to present LD 1813, an act to amend the definition of oversized ATV to increase the minimum weight requirement. The category of oversized ATV currently includes any ATV over 65 inches wide or more than 2,000 pounds. This bill keeps the limit of 65 inches in width, but changes the weight limit to 2,400 pounds, which I believe more accurately reflects the weight and size of standard ATVs currently in use today. You know, last year when the committee was dealing with this, I understood that there was a report coming forward with the current statute, and I was concerned at that point that 2,000 pounds was going to be a problem. And I introduced an amendment on the floor of the Maine Senate in response to the concern rule change related to that statute, Title 12, Chapter 939, governing ATV use and registration. Now, after having numerous discussions about that, I did not go forward with my amendment because I found that it seemed that there was a solution that might take care of the problem. But even last session, I was very uneasy about the proposed rule and what we actually ended up passing. And with that frustration and uneasiness, I think I was, at least in my area, I've been proven right. That frustration has grown among ATV riders and retailers. Many longtime riders have felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath them. I've even heard from some landowners who are fed up with this plan and that they plan to post their land, closing it off to hunting and recreation should the new rules remain in place. Now, the idea of posting was actually why, I was told that we had to go forward with this rule, was to make sure that people weren't shutting off their land. Now it seems like we're still getting people shutting off their land, which obviously doesn't no one any good. In Maine, outdoor recreation is more than just a beloved pastime. It's increasingly become a key component of our economy, especially in rural parts of the state. According to data from 2020, Maine's outdoor recreation industry brought in about $2.3 billion to the state's GDP and accounted for more than 28,000 jobs. I think, putting it simply, increasing the weight limit for standard size ATVs will modernize the rules that impact riders and retailers around Maine. The increase of a few hundred pounds while keeping current width rules will not impact trail conditions, but will positively impact landowners, recreators, sportsmen, and local businesses. I just, again, like to say, I know the committee worked extremely hard on this, and I know it was a long time discussion of, coming up with this. I mean, one of the people that was actually on the commission that grappled with, I had pushed for to get coming out of Fort Kent. And I am, I'm in a couple of ATV clubs. The width restriction, I'm 100% behind. I've seen places where clubs have worked really, really hard to put bridges up and things like that. In my area, covered bridges, and then come back later on and seeing where someone was taking a chainsaw so that they can get through something that was 70 inches. So the width restrictions makes all the sense in the world. And I understand, like I said, the committee has got people coming at it from both sides. I really do. But I have a hard time really to believe that 400 more pounds on sanctioned ATV trails through the state of Maine with the money and the time, the effort, the trail system that they make. I don't believe that extra weight is actually going to be damaging to the trails. And so the other thing, reason why I felt it was important to bring this bill forward was when I looked at the testimony in the committee, it didn't seem like enough people actually testified at that time. And that's not the committee's fault. That's not anyone's fault. It's just the way it went forward. Now, obviously, a lot of people have eyes on this. I think this gives more people the opportunity to speak in support, in opposition, whatever, but at least make their voice heard on it. Like you said, I feel strongly that extra 400 pounds won't be a detriment to the trail system, won't be a detriment to the landowners, because those trails, have been worked on. Money's been put into them to make them, very adequate trails. So that's why I put the bill forward. And one of the misconceptions I heard was that because this bill came out of committee unanimous and there was no roll calls on the House and Senate floor, that it had gone directly to the governor, that the legislature didn't weigh in on it. I want to publicly say that it's not accurate. Obviously, as you all know, it did come to the House and Senate floor, and we all voted unanimously on it, myself included. Although I had concerns, and now, like I said, people in my area have spoken. There's some upset people. There's some people that don't believe this is fair. Today's their opportunity. I don't disagree with them on the weight, but it's for the public, and so I'm open to any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, President Jackson. Anybody have any questions for the president? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Are there any co-sponsors who would like to speak to this bill?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think Representative Hepler has a question.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Representative Martin. Representative Hepler, your hand's hiding up there in the corner.
That's true. Yeah.
I should change the color. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Jackson, I'm reading the testimony, all the testimony. Did you participate in a task force that was last year or year before?
No, I didn't participate. I know I had advocated strongly for somebody from northern Maine to be on the task force. And the governor did appoint a person from Fort Kent, but I was not on the task force.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Danny Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Jackson, for your presentation. I do recall your Senate amendment last year, and I remember the discussion between you and certain committee members, and I believe that we had agreed that because the weight limit on certain UTVs that exceed 2,000 pounds are grandfathered. At least that's my understanding, and I stand to be corrected if that's not the case, but I think the public needs to be made aware that there is a grandfather provision in the bill.
Yep. You're absolutely right, Representative Martin. That's another unfortunate misconception. Not only are they grandfathered, they're grandfathered to the life of the vehicle. So the idea that people lose value on their ATVs, I don't really believe that's accurate, because obviously anyone you sell it to has the grandfathering provision. But I do think that, we have a number of ATVs across the industry that are over that 2,000 pound restriction. And I think it causes a lot of frustration that some people were able to get them, other people aren't. At this point, as far as I understand, there's none over 2,400 pounds. I do think that if you're able to cap that at 2,400 pounds now, you should be able to argue that when the law went into effect, there was no one that was going to be negatively affected by it. Yes, the industry could make one next year that's 2,500 pounds. I understand that. But at that point, people should be able to know that, that's not illegal. That's not legal. Right now, we have a system where some people have machines that are legal, and some people have machines that look exactly like those that are not legal to use on the trail, and that causes a lot of anger and frustration.
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator.
Certainly.
It appears that this is more of an issue in the northern part of the state, especially with large landowners. I know I've been, I've in full disclosure to the committee, I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, but I want to share with you that I have heard from a fairly large landowner in the central Aroostook area that is extremely concerned about this issue. So I'm just wondering, the grandfather position, for example, if I were to purchase a new UTV this year that exceeds 2,000 pounds, that would not be legal. Is that correct?
Yeah. You had to, I think you had to get it before the 1st of January or something like that.
Yeah.
But right now, if you buy one, it's not legal.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
And you are right. I mean, there's a number of ATV clubs in northern Maine that are, upset now about, where we are on this. And like I said, I understand. I mean, I had concerns about it last year, but I understand we're under a system where we're asking landowners to allow trail access. I get that. I still have a hard time really though with an extra 400 pounds being a challenge for landowners having their land room. But I know the width makes larger trails and things like that. I get it. So I'm in support of that, but I don't think 400 pounds is going to be a huge detriment.
Senator Jackson, aren't you concerned about the creep effect of this whole thing? I look around, these machines are getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that creep effect is unfortunately in most everything that we deal with here in the legislature. But I think in good conscience, every one of us could probably go out and say that the law takes care of every machine that's able to go on an ATV trail right now. If somebody, some retailer, manufacturer makes one 2,500 pounds next year, well, you really are out of luck if you haven't researched at that point. But I don't know how to explain to people that, could be a neighbor and one person has an ATV that's 2,300 pounds and they can use it, and another person that bought one a month later has one that can't. I understand the grandfather provision. I thought that would be a good solution, but it's caused a lot of frustration.
Obviously, yes. Representative Hepler.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Do other states, what's happening in other states, and does Canada have anything like this?
Don't get me started on Canada. I don't know, Representative Hepler. I'm sorry. Those are great questions, but I don't know.
Representative Ordway.
Yes, thank you, Representative Landry. Good morning, President Jackson.
Morning, Lester.
A couple of things. It wouldn't make oversized, this bill would not, the one that we passed, would not make oversized ATVs illegal. They'd be able to, it was only on trails. They would be able to go on ice. They'd be able to go on their own land. But my major thing with this is it was a long drawn out process with a stakeholders group, and they put a lot of work into this. And I honestly have a little bit of a problem. We ask these folks to do a lot of work, and then we go against what they recommended to us. And believe me, I understand the issues up in northern Maine. I'm there quite as often as I can be. But yeah, those are two concerns I have. It was not a rushed process.
No.
So yeah, I think we have to trust my personal opinion is we have to trust the stakeholders groups that we asked to do this for us.
Representative Ordway, I 100% agree. And I mean, in the committee process, I don't think it was rushed either. I mean, for me, it's not a slight on the stakeholder or the committee at all. I mean, I just had concerns about it at the time, and for me, they've come true. But like, I think the very first person that I heard from last year when we were about to debate this was one of the people on the stakeholder committee. So I don't know if those were unanimous votes or what, but that's where I got my first information that there would be ATVs being sold that were not being able to be used on the trails. And you're right. I mean, you can still buy the machines, you can use them on your own land and stuff like that. You're right. They're not illegal. They're just not able to be used on ATV trails. I mean, state ATV trails.
Thank you, Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your presentation, Senator. My question is more about what do we do with the landowners that are complaining that they're too heavy? I mean, we have one up in the county that's complaining, but what about all the people in southern Maine that are complaining that they have to keep repairing their bridges because the weights are just getting out of control? And the stakeholder group came to us and said, let's put a limit on it. You know, it goes both ways. So how do we address the people that are complaining about that? They have every right to say that just as much as the person in the county. So you come up with a solution for that, and I'm all ears.
That's obviously a great point, Representative Terrio, and I don't disagree with you. You know, I mean, the best I could say about that is, you know, if it's a sanctioned ATV trail by the state of Maine, I mean, obviously, you know, if we have to put more money in our trail system, but we always do anyways, and I think we got so many volunteers doing so much work. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I know there's two sides to the coin, and to think I almost got it here with no questions.
Can't get out of here that easy. Are there any more questions for the Senate? And we had no co-sponsors other than Representative Danny Martin who wanted to speak to it. Let's hear from the department. Commissioner Camuso, are you prepared to speak, or is Deputy Commissioner Peabody in charge?
Thank you, Representative Landry. Deputy Commissioner Peabody represented the department on the stakeholder group, so he will be giving our testimony.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Representative Landry, Senator Dill, members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Tim Peabody, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, speaking on behalf of the department, neither for nor against LD 1813. LD 1813 proposes to increase the maximum weight of an oversized ATV to 2,400 pounds. Public Law Chapter 215 was passed last session, which set the size and weight restrictions for an oversized ATV. The law states an oversized ATV means an ATV that is wider than 65 inches, weighs more than 2,000 pounds, according to the manufacturer's specifications. This width and weight was a recommendation of the ATV task force that Governor Mills established by executive order in 2019. Oversized ATVs under the new law have restrictions in terms of registration and where they're allowed to operate in the state of Maine. The final report of the task force, which I've actually attached a link to my written testimony, had a number of recommendations covering a wide range of ATVs issues. Many of the recommendations were codified in Public Law Chapter 215 in 2021. The Department and Agricultural Conservation Recreational Vehicle Program have worked to educate ATV owners, ATV clubs, landowners, dealers, and registration agents on the law changes that occurred on October 18th, 2021 and January 1, 2022. That's the grandfather clause. I'm going to read to the committee an excerpt from the ATV Task Force final report. Originally, the state ATV trail network was designed to accommodate machines 50-inch wide or less. That design was changed to 60 inches based on growing sales of larger machines. In 2019, more than 10% of all ATVs registered in Maine exceeded the 60 inches in width. And while the state trail system doesn't have an official size limit, different landowners have established a lot different allowable width standards for their lands, the most common being 60 inches. This leads to confusion, frustration, and a disjointed trail system. The ATV task force chose the 65 inches wide and 2,000 pounds based on manufacturer specification standards as a compromise. Some landowners wanted much smaller limits. Some were not concerned about the size, but it's clear there's a limit to the size and weight that most private landowners find acceptable on their lands. We consistently heard there has to be a limit. Again, that's an excerpt directly from the task force report. The task force deliberated and with extended reviewed the 2019 registration and manufacturer data. The width speaks for itself. Wider machines equal a larger trail cut onto the landscape. The weight is more subjective. We recognize that the heavier machines, when operated in an aggressive manner, or I term as having fun, cause more costly damage to the trail system. The recommended 65-inch width and 2,000-pound weight was a compromise by landowners and land users based on the information we had at the time. Landowners still retain the ability to limit any type of vehicle on their land base. The task force recommendation was not made in secret. The 14 members represented a wide spectrum of forestry and agricultural landowners, large and small, and ATV enthusiasts. Each member was tasked with communicating with others who had similar land holdings, either farms or woodlands, or ATV riding interests, and that's clubs and dealers. The department set up a special webpage to provide the public with meeting agendas and minutes, as well as a platform to solicit public comment through a survey. We had over 1,000 persons provide feedback and suggestion to the task force. Since the law's inception, we've realized that each manufacturer provides weight specifications differently. For example, they may list a shipping weight that includes the box and shipping materials, or the dry weight of the machine with no liquids in it, or the wet weight of the machine, which includes a full tank of gas, oil, transmission fluid, etc. If the committee supports any change to this bill, we would still like to abide by the manufacturer's specifications without choosing what kind of weight is being provided. It will provide some flexibility on the weight as long as it does not exceed the maximum. In preparation for the neither for portion of the testimony, Commissioner Musso received feedback from the Landowner Sportsman's Relation Advisory Board. This is an 11-member board representing landowners and the sporting public, advises the commissioner on landowner-related laws, rules, department policies, and other significant landowner and land user issues. The board has reviewed this legislation and opposes LD 1813 and has made a recommendation that the department oppose the bill for the following reasons. The limit of 2,000 pounds for ATVs has only just come into effect, and this is the result of carefully considered negotiations among stakeholders as part of the ATV task force. It's too soon to suggest changes to this relatively untested limit, and doing so risks alienating parties who negotiated this issue in good faith. The board acknowledges that there may be legitimate concerns related to specific uses of oversized ATVs requiring further consideration and action, but this bill is too broadly focused to accomplish these goals. Issues such as having to cross someone's land to get to the next field with an unregistered oversized machine, or shifting oversized ATV used to other landowner properties, can be addressed by more specific measures if necessary. In closing, this is a landowner relations issue, and the department relies on private landowners to support all of our programs. We have a very responsive landowner relations program thanks to the work of this committee and the support of everyone in the state. We're not interested in disrupting the balance we have with our private landowners and our ATV trail system, and hope that a resolution can be reached. I also attached, again, a copy of the ATV task force and some background information on the task force itself for those who want a link from our testimony, and I'm available for questions from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner, for your presentation. I'm sure you'll have some questions. Representative Danny Martin. You're muted. You're muted, Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. Good morning, Deputy Commissioner. A couple of questions. Are you hearing any complaints or concerns from folks from either northern Maine or southern Maine regarding the weight limits? I ask you that because yesterday I had an opportunity to speak to a representative that represents ATV Maine, located here in the St. John Valley. And his response was, have not received any complaints at all whatsoever, which surprises me because I know legislators, I know I'm receiving phone calls, and I know the good senator that represents the northern part of Aroostook has as well. So I was just wondering if the department is hearing any concerns at all.
Thank you, Representative Martin. Personally, I was hearing them before January 1.
Yeah.
We're dealing with them quite regularly here, and a lot of that was coming from the dealers having questions on machines that were not delivered prior to January 1. And I think, you know, as a department, worked through those problems. I think we treated everybody very well and basically said, if you purchase one from a dealer prior to January 1, that we would honor that since the delivery was delayed.
Right.
Because of manufacturing problems, we would honor that registration once it was delivered. We had a lot of activity here then, but I have not personally had much coming in since the grandfathering deadline.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Deputy Commissioner Peabody? Seeing none, you're off the hook, I guess.
Thank you.
We have a number of people who want to testify. Senator Dill, would you like to introduce yourself? Can you introduce yourself?
I don't know, can I?
You can.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. I've blown two monitors 2 days in a row, so I don't know what's going on here with my computer. I'm Senator Jim Dill, and I represent Northern Penobscot County, and I'm from Old Town. And welcome, everybody. And I hope we'll see if I can continue.
Let's hope so. Linda, you letting in the folks I see who want to testify in favor of?
I am. I'm sending in the last one now. And so everybody in favor is on.
Okay, well, why don't we start with Emily Smith, who's testifying in favor. Good morning. You're muted.
Good morning. Senators, representatives, members of the committee. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Our position is in favor of Senator Jackson's proposed bill. My name is Emily Smith, and I'm the president of Smith's Farm, Inc., 6th generation Aroostook County farmer. We own approximately 15,000 acres of cropland and manage through long-term leases several thousand more acres. Our land is our livelihood and is very important to us. And Maine is our home. And our communities and outdoor recreation and being involved in allowing access is also very important to our farm. We've been a supporter of local ATV clubs and snowmobile clubs for all those generations. We own and operate the Polaris Ultimate machines that weigh a little over 2,300 pounds on our farm and personally. On the farm, we use these machines primarily for irrigation. And I understand the law allows you to use your own machines on your own land. that kind of seems like a given, but thank you. I met with Representative McCray from Fort Fairfield a few weeks back, or actually before Christmas. He's very familiar with our land, and I was explaining to him, which made it easy because he understands where our land is. But I was explaining to him that if I'm irrigating on the Fred Russell farm and I need to get to a pump site, the pump site that services that farm, I need to cross my neighbor's farm to get to my next farm to get to the river. So in that instance, I'm operating a machine on access that I've allowed, access that my neighbor has allowed, and then back onto access that I've allowed, but I'm illegal. And so that's where a lot of the angst came from. If I want to take that machine and go to the farm shop and get a part to come back to work on a piece of equipment on that farm, between Fort Fairfield and Limestone, I'm probably going to be legal 80 to 90% of the time and illegal the other 20% of the time when I'm crossing land that has access approved, but that I don't own. Our trails and our bridges and our infrastructure in Aroostook County handles 20 to 30,000 pound groomer machines that we also allow on our land. So a change from 2,000 to 2,400 to us seems pretty simple, a simple, quick change to make. That being said, I am aware that not all trail systems in the state are equipped for heavier machines. But that would lead me to the conclusion that access should be left up to the landowner, which was stated earlier that if somebody wanted a lesser amount on their land, that they can still post for that limit. Or that maybe one law for the whole state isn't gonna work for everybody. I would draw your attention to a book I'm sure you are all familiar with, and you're commended on your work for this book, but these are the main fishing laws. This book is 53 pages long. And so in comparison, making one law for someone in Rockport or Saco or Jackman or Presque Isle, maybe there can't be that blanket coverage of one weight limit for the state. In my opinion, ATVing in Aroostook County is just starting to get its steam and has the potential to be a huge economic driver, much like the snowmobile industry has. We've worked multiple years with multiple clubs to get the access, sitting right here in this conference room on the big screen with our land up there, trying to figure out how they could access trails. And so we're quite proud of that, and we worked really hard on it. We want to see this industry survive, and not only survive, but thrive. And I believe that these machines that are now available that we use, I'm not familiar with every make and model, but the Polaris Ultimate has air conditioning and heat and a controlled environment in the cab. My dad wanted to purchase one this year for his own personal use. But now that machine's illegal. I think that these machines that not only extend our season a little bit, but also get a lot of the population that doesn't want to be out in the dust and the elements, but wants to go see the scenery and enjoy a ride with their grandkids to the country club on Sunday. I think these are the things that's starting to happen, and these machines are the reason why. And so I think that we would be doing a very strong disservice to the state to outlaw these machines in places that can handle them. And I'm a landowner, I get it. I've heard about Jeeps and different things going on downstate. And if that was tearing across my farm, I would let you know too. But these machines are 68 horsepower. I think in the first 500 miles of my personal machine, if you go back and look at the average speed, and it's between 7 and 8 miles an hour. They're not, these aren't people tearing up the land. So earlier, there was discussion about asking Senator Jackson about solutions. And I believe that there are solutions. With this new law, you're forfeiting and giving up 100% of the sales tax on the most expensive machines on the market. There's a local dealer here that sold, and I don't have perfectly accurate numbers, but this is going to be just an estimate. A local dealer sold 30 of these units last year. The sales tax on each unit is between $1,600 and $1,700. So that's $50,000 just on that one single machine. So if we took the sales tax on machines that are between 2,000 and 2,400 pounds, which the state is, if you're going to stay with your bill, you've already given it up, you've thrown it away. So take that money and give it to the local ATV clubs in the area where those machines are registered. That those people are allowing that extra weight, then we can do that extra work to the bridges and in the corners. The other thing is, I think that we need to support or enforce club membership. And I think this is true with ATVs and snowmobiles. That money, they do it in Canada. When you go snow sledding over there, if we can ever get back over there, before you go sledding and you go in to register your machine, you pay for a club membership. It's just another way to put funding back to the specific areas. I think that would be something for you guys to think about. But I think it would be very short-sighted to stay with 2,000 pounds across the state. I would leave it to the landowner's discretion, or exempt areas, or have different laws for different areas of the state that are equipped with the infrastructure to handle 2,400 pounds. Simply moving the weight to 2,400 pounds to accommodate these machines, which are already on the trails and already on the market, I think is in the best interest of the state. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony, Emily. Do we have any questions for Ms. Smith? Seeing none, thank you very much. Why don't we go to George McLaughlin, speaking in favor?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am speaking in support of the amendment to LD 1813. As an avid ATV and snowmobiler of Maine, I strongly encourage you to amend current legislation, LD 1813. Maine is financially supported by many outdoor enthusiasts, as it has a great ATV and snowmobile trail system. I strongly feel that it's not in the state's best interest to regulate ATV weights to current 2,000-pound weight restrictions. Many ATVs in Maine are adequate. Many ATV trails in Maine are adequate to support heavy truck weights, let alone ATV weights. As an active ATV rider and past president of a local snowmobile club, I clearly understand the concerns of some landowners that some trails or areas are have inadequate base support for heavy units. I truly feel that the weight limit should not restrict access to all trails, but should be controlled by local clubs. Clubs currently determine when trails can be opened. They determine when a trail should be closed. They are required to mark any hazards and directions for the safety of operators, and they should have the authority, as they are the managing entity between the trail system and the local landowners. I can personally state that anytime a landowner has an issue, they typically contact the club representative to address a concern. That section is marked and labeled. If it's inappropriate to be riding, whether it's a short-term or long-term period. For one to say that a large ATV are the primary cause of trail destruction I would strongly disagree, as many times I've noted that speed and cowboy riding are the primary cause. I've yet to see a 2 or 3 seat machine spinning cookies or speeding down a trail. These large machines are typically used for family-oriented riding, and the average speed of most family-oriented riding wouldn't exceed 20 miles an hour. I think we're scrutinizing just large machines. Also, I'd like to important note that Maine has a great trail fund available for clubs for managing our current trail systems. There is funding out there. I, as a volunteer, spend many hours helping rebuild bridges, cut brush, and maintain trails. I donate the use of my own personal heavy equipment, and I honestly would state that the state is jeopardizing itself by limiting the weight of heavy use machines. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I strongly recommend that the committee consider amending LD 1813.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Anybody have any questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Seeing none, we have one more person, Randolph Mishu, speaking in favor. Is he in?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and speak in favor of LD 1813. I'm an outdoorsman. I use my ATV for hunting, fishing, camping, whatever. I own a Polaris, which is just under the 2,000 pound mark, and that's with fully fueled. But I also have been the past trail master for the Star City ATV Club here in Presque Isle. For 5 years, I was the trail master. We work very closely with the landowners when we make these bridges, gain trail access across their property and so forth. And most of these trails are done with them in mind. I had one landowner at one time wanted to divert the trail off in the main trail. Most of our trails up here in the Aroostook County is railroad bed, which can handle the extra 400 pounds. There are some trails that go across some people's land, farmland, as Emily Smith stated. But the majority of it is the railroad beds, except for when you go through the woods and across somebody's lands and through the woods and stuff. And therefore, the 65 width limit is adequate. Okay, anything larger than that, it's really hard to get in between the trees and stuff. But when we make these bridges, I mean, these bridges are made with telephone poles, 3 or 4 telephone poles across, in lengthways going across these, these streams and so forth. And they've got 2x6s for the top of it. I've taken tractors from the Star City ATV Club across these bridges. Okay, now these tractors are a lot more than 2,400 pounds. When I'm dragging the trails, the drag we have is a great big farm tractor, and it's a great big grader on the back of it, and it doesn't do any more damage than a regular farm tractor does going down the trail. So, I think if we cut, I can't see where an extra 400 pounds is going to make that big of a difference. And the last guy that just testified, when my wife and I go riding, it's 10 to 15 miles an hour all day long, on a weekend or whatever. So these machines really aren't tearing up the limit. Other than that, I think, people that want to buy a machine that's later on in life that's 2,600 pounds or 2,700 pounds, well, I think they're out of luck. You understand what I'm saying? I think you got to cap it somewhere, and I agree with your task force there at the beginning of it, but I don't think all aspects were put into place. And, the up here in Aroostook County is different than Southern Maine. And I agree with Emily, one law doesn't fit everything. And, so, I'm in, like I said, I'm in favor of LD 1813. I think it ought to be repealed. I think the weight ought to be added in that extra 400 pounds. It's not going to make that big of a difference as far as what can hold and what it can hold and what it can't. Like I say, I enjoy it. I use mine for hunting, fishing, camping, whatever, family outings, and so forth. So I want to thank you all for letting me speak here today. And it's the first time I've ever done it. So I just got my feet wet. And I wish you all a great year and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michaud. We'll come back again. Are there any questions from Mr. Michaud? Thanks again. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have two folks to testify against the bill. The first would be Patrick Strout.
Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and distinguished members of the Joint Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Patrick Strout. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Forest Products Council. We represent all aspects of the industry, from contractors and mills to over 8.5 million acres of timber landowners. And we certainly appreciate Senator Jackson bringing this bill forward over the concerns that are obviously being heard in his district. We do want to commend IFW, who's been responsive to the concerns raised by the large landowner community. Part of what precipitated the formation of this task force was really concern about the damage witnessed on state trails that went across private land, and in many cases putting landowners in jeopardy of violating environmental laws. So this is a real issue to the landowner community. The task force was a very thoughtful idea with 14 members representing large landowners, small landowners, farmers, farming organization, land trusts, snowmobile clubs. It was a strong effort that was appreciated. John Bryant Forester with American Forest Management co-chaired the proceedings with the task force with Deputy Director Tim Peabody. And the purpose of the task force was to recommend how best to deal with the social, economic, legal, and environmental problems caused by ATV operations. Compromises were made. It was an elaborate process. This committee is well aware of that. The 2,000 pound limit and the 65-inch maximum were established. Many landowners were reluctant to establish this highest ceiling, but in the spirit of cooperation and in terms of having a trail system throughout Maine that was consistent, lots of compromise was made. We talked about the grandfathering provisions. I think if people understand them, they may have more flexibility than they realize. But the approach using a community supported solution is always going to be more successful. So we like the process, but everyone needs to take ownership in the over 6,000 miles of state approved trails. So we think it was an inclusive process. We think we need to defend the process and the efforts made by IFNW to date. They certainly notified the public and the dealerships, and there's not much more they could do in order to implement the law. Some landowners, as you've heard, are concerned about creeping the weights up, and they may elect to keep them at 2,000 pounds, which will get us right back where we started, where we don't have consistent trail system. It's disjointed. It's hard to market that to people that want to come enjoy Maine and participate in ATVing without that level of consistency. So we're here today to listen, understand concerns. We think there may be interpretations that can already remedy some problems, such as the farm access issue. So we're here to listen. It's a serious concern to notch this up. This weight increase would be about a 20% increase, and the process needs to be respected, and you're going to need to talk a lot about this issue to convince landowners that it's the right thing to do, but my landowners at least. So thank you very much. I'd be glad to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Patrick. I see Representative Hepler has a question for you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Mr. Chair, and nice to see you, Patrick. I was just going to ask about, were you on the task force?
No, I think we had a representative on the task force from the Maine Forest Products Council, and I can't keep track, but I think that was John Bryant, who was the co-chair that was on.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it Tim? Okay.
Senator Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Patrick, for being here and testifying today. Outside of the inconsistency, is this going to cause a workload or a big inconvenience for your landowners if they say the new bill went forward? Is this going to cause a headache or hardship for your landowners?
Well, I think we're hearing from some landowners that they'll keep the weights where the negotiation was to date. So apparently it's a problem for some of them, yes.
So they would not necessarily close the trail, but they would monitor their own land and limit it to the 2,000.
Yes, I mean the landowner has the right to do how they please. We think ATVs are important. We recognize our role in trying to encourage the use of them in an environmentally and safe way, just like we do with snowmobile trails. I mean, the thing is, snowmobiles have it easy because they're going over frozen ground. They don't do any damage, but ATVs, as they get bigger and bigger, are becoming more of an issue. We're seeing it across the state. We have provided evidence to the department that there's a real problem, and we know that we have to begin to set a standard, restrict sizes in order to have, unless we want to start paving ATV trails, which is not the solution, or putting a lot more money into building them into the standards we use for our roads. So it's an issue. We've got to set the standard somewhere. We agreed to a standard, so we want to protect the process, but I'm here.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions for Mr. Strout? Seeing none, thank you for your
Thank you very much.
input. And we have one more gentleman to testify against. That would be Tom Doak of the Maine Woodland Owners. Good morning.
Morning, thank you. Chairs Dill and Landry, members of the committee, my name is Tom Doak, Executive Director of the Maine Woodland Owners, speaking in opposition to 1813. I was on the ATV task force. We had 7-day-long meetings. And I sat through every second of those discussions and the review and multiple reviews of the report. I know there's some strong feelings around this issue. I think a lot of them are based on, unfortunately, on misinformation about the grandfathering, and there are no illegal machines, ATV, nothing is illegal. It means you can still buy them. Everything up till January 1st, whether you owned it or purchased it, is grandfathered for life. And so nobody is harmed who owns a machine or who has ordered a machine, nobody. There are no illegal machines. You can still buy the machines. You can still use the machines. You just can't register them. So you can only use them where you don't need to be, they do not need to be registered. So there's a lot of misinformation here around this issue. There was a discussion about, I think Representative Landry talked about creep, and I think Tim Peabody mentioned, that originally the standard was a 50. From a landowner point of view, here's the example of creep. The landowners agreed to a 50-inch wide ATV standard on state trails. People just blew right by that. So it went to 60 and people blew right by that. And so now we're up to something larger than 60. One of the biggest things for landowners was to set some kind of cap, you know, to say that was probably as big an issue for them as anything is setting some kind of limit. From a landowner point of view, there's, you know, and it was deliberate. We looked at a lot of data. There's 70, at the time there were 70,000 ATVs registered in Maine. I know there are more than that. We were talking about 200 to 300 that were over the size that we were talking about at the time. And those were grandfathered. So nobody loses out. The issue of you might not be able to buy, you won't be able to buy an oversized one and register it from now on, but you still can buy one and use it. I think we knew there was a lot of discussion in the committee, and we knew no matter what number we picked, somebody would not like it. It didn't matter what number you picked, but there was a lot of discussion about that 65-inch and 2,000 pounds. And I can tell you that most landowners did not want to go to 65. The biggest criticism I've heard from my members is I agreed to too high a number on the ATVs. But I said, this is reasonable, this is a compromise, and this will put a cap on it and we can go forward from there. And my concern is the law went into effect January 1st. Everybody is grandfathered, and then 2 months, less than 2 months later, we're talking about amending the standard that we all agreed to and worked so hard to come to. So I'm worried about the message, that sends. And to the point of one of the other principal things that we discussed on the group was we have a disjointed ATV trail system. We all acknowledge that because landowners had different standards. The idea of setting the 65-inch and 2,000 pounds was to get some standardization so that if you come to Maine or you're a Maine person and you want to ride on the ATV network, you know where you can fit, that the trails will connect. Because we've had many different landowners setting many different standards, and that doesn't work for the ATV and it doesn't work for the landowners who then end up with people unhappy that why can't I take my big ATV onto your land? So this was a conscious effort to try to get to a number that we knew somebody would not like, but deals with the vast majority of the issues. And as far as the issue of, and I'll close with, as far as the issue of a legitimate work use of an ATV, like crossing somebody's land from one field to another, there should be a simple way to deal with that. That's not what we were trying to deal with. If you have an oversized unregistered ATV on your own land and need to cross another person to get to your land for a work purpose, there should be some simple way to deal with that. And I'd certainly be happy to work on that issue because I think that's legitimate, and certainly the task force never contemplated interrupting that kind of activity. So with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Delk? Representative Ordway?
More of a comment, but I do like that suggestion. I know that New Hampshire has a registration for agricultural use ATVs. And that might be something we could look into.
Good point. Are there any other questions? Linda, I don't see that we have anybody else in the queue.
That's correct. Representative Landry, I don't see anybody else waiting to testify.
Very good. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll close the public hearing on LD 1813, an act to amend the definition of oversized ATV to increase the minimum weight requirement. Thank you. And what's next on the agenda, Linda? I don't have a list. I just show a legislative meeting.
It is the committee discussion. I think Julia can probably tell more about that.
Would you please, Julia?
Yes, we are going to have a committee discussion on deer electronic tagging. And I can start that off if it's okay with you, Representative Landry and Chair Dill.
Please do.
So we have language.
Excuse me, Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Julia, for interrupting. You mentioned discussion on electronic tagging of deer. Did you mean to say big game? Or are we just, I was just wondering why we were limiting to deer. Is that what is being presented by the department or what?
The directive that I had understood from our meeting last week was to work with the department to come up with language for deer tagging. However, the language that I'm going to present today would be easily flexible to include other big game animals of your choice. The language is going to direct the department to adopt rules by 2024 to implement electronic tagging. And it also requires a report back for 2023 where they will recommend all the additional statutory changes and as well as policy and rule changes that will need to happen for that to be implemented. And I know the department wants to report on that before I present the language that we have today.
Correct. Earlier in the week, if I may, Mr. Chair, Julia, earlier in the week, we decided to have two separate pieces of legislation, one for turkey and one for big game. Is that correct?
That's correct, Representative Martin.
And the committee, I believe, directed the department and to work with you to draft two pieces of separate legislation. And I'm assuming that you're working or you're almost there with the turkey bill. Is that correct?
That's correct, Representative Martin. The language for turkeys will be reviewed on Monday.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome. Julia?
Great. So I know as the language is summarized by those 2 points, it is directing the department to implement electronic tagging by 2004. And it also provides a report where they will show the additional policy changes. Before I walk through that language, I believe the department would like to make some comments for the committee if you would allow.
Certainly. Who's going to speak for the department this morning? Deputy Commissioner, is that you or Commissioner?
Actually, we'll ask Dr. Webb, the Wildlife Director, to come forward and he will give the presentation.
Thank you.
I'm moving him in now.
Don't lose him.
We got him.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. All right. Good morning. I'm Nate Webb, the Wildlife Division Director at the department. And as Julia mentioned, I'd like to spend a few minutes just giving an overview of some of the considerations for the committee regarding electronic tagging for deer, and that would also include other big game species as well. So just to start with, as we've outlined in previous discussions, the department feels that it would be relatively straightforward to create an electronic self-reporting option for hunters to register harvested wild turkeys with minimal impact on other areas of statute or rule. We anticipate an increase in costs of about $45,000 for a reward banding program to estimate compliance with the registration for turkey and to address increased demand for technical support by the thousands of hunters that we expect would use the system each year. There would be no direct loss of revenue to the department because turkey registration fees are retained by the tagging agent and do not come to the department. Now, for deer and other big game, the statutory changes required to simply allow electronic self-reporting are relatively simple, and Julia, as she mentioned, will review draft versions of those changes in a few minutes. However, as we've previously discussed, ensuring the system works well for hunters and for the department's ability to manage these important resources will require review and consideration of numerous other areas of statute, department rule, policy, and operational practices. As we've discussed, these include the currently proposed statutory changes to the antlerless deer system and the use of crossbows in archery seasons. Beyond that, and most importantly, the department believes several other relatively significant changes to our licensing and permit framework may be required, including, and there's sort of 3 areas that I'll describe briefly and then give a more in-depth overview of. The first of those is ensuring that all hunters have their profile loaded into the department's electronic licensing system, which means no more paper licenses. The second is ensuring we have current contact information for all hunters permitted to harvest antlerless deer or bear or moose, so we can survey them to evaluate compliance with the registration. And the third is ensuring that hunters with a license that includes other permits for hunting big game at no additional charge, of which there's several examples of, are required to actually apply for and obtain these permits at no cost. So I'll go through each of those in a little bit more depth, starting with paper licenses and permits. Currently, some hunters purchase their licenses in the paper formats. This has declined over time, but the authorities granted by these licenses and permits are not immediately loaded in to the Moses electronic licensing system. Since one of the purposes of our system of registering big game is to ensure that the hunter has the legal authority to harvest the animal they're registering, these animals would not be able to electronically self-report their harvests. Therefore, we would suggest eliminating the sale of paper licenses and permits in order to allow hunters the option of self-reporting their harvests. This would require changes to Department Rules Chapter 16 and Chapter 21. For the second area, the contact information component, in order for the department to survey hunters to estimate compliance with a self-reporting system, we would need to address the long-standing issue of not having current contact information for lifetime license holders and some complementary license holders, as well as the fact that landowners hunting on their own land do not require a license at all in most cases. In order to address this, we would propose that all holders of lifetime and complementary licenses renew their license each year they intend to use it. And we would also propose that landowners that are currently able to hunt on their own land without a license to obtain a license at no cost, so that we know they're actually participating. This would allow us to survey these hunters to determine whether they harvested a deer, moose, or bear, and compare this with a registration database, and would also provide information on the numbers of these hunters that are actually active and hunting in a particular year. As a side benefit, these changes would also make it easier for us to contact these hunters to collect biological samples if required, and to provide them with information on laws, rules, and other updates. As the department's communications have increasingly shifted towards electronic outreach methods such as digital law books, gov delivery, social media, etc., it has become more important than ever for us to know how many active hunters we have and to be able to contact them. As a recent example of this, our consumption advisory this past fall for deer in the Fairfield area could only be sent to those hunters that we had current contact information for. Again, I want to stress that although we believe these changes would be required for ensuring an electronic self-reporting system for deer or other big game works well, they would also address numerous other long-standing challenges with lifetime and complementary licenses and landowners hunting without a license. These groups are essentially a shadow population of hunters, and we lack information on how many are actually hunting, whether they are still residents of Maine, and even whether they are still alive. I do want to point out that operationalizing these changes would be complex, as the department would need to develop a system to allow these hunters to easily renew or obtain their licenses at no cost to them, while also providing a way for those hunters uncomfortable or unfamiliar with using an electronic system for that to renew or obtain their license via phone or in person. These are all issues that the department would need more time to consider and address. And so the third sort of broad category with our license and permit framework is the fact that some licenses include permits for hunting big game species. So currently permits to hunt antlerless deer, turkey, bear, and some other examples as well are included in some hunting licenses. Some examples are youth licenses, senior hunters over 70, disabled veterans, tribal members, etc. This currently makes it impossible for the department to efficiently survey hunters to determine whether they actually hunted antlerless deer or the other big game species, and if they did, whether or not they harvested one. Therefore, in order for us to be able to accurately estimate compliance with self-reporting of big game harvests, we would propose that holders of licenses for which a permit to hunt big game is included be required to apply for and obtain these permits from the department, again, at no additional cost. This would give us accurate information on the number of hunters actually participating in the hunting of these species. And similar to the issue with lifetime licenses, this is a multifaceted issue, and this change would also address other long-standing challenges that the department has had in determining the number of active hunters for antlerless deer, bear, and some other examples, and efficiently contacting them to provide them with information or to survey them. Because of these benefits, we would suggest that if this change is made for deer, that it is also made for other situations where a permit is included, such as turkey, bear, muzzleloader, etc., so we can determine participation in these activities. So with that, I'd like to pivot to just briefly sharing a document with the committee that kind of outlines some of these issues and where they're captured in Title 12, and some potential language that is currently very much in draft form for the committee's consideration. So I'll share my screen. So starting off with lifetime license holders, and I'll just scroll down to the area highlighted in yellow. As you can see, there is quite a bit of statute related to lifetime licenses. So this section here in yellow this would be new potential language that would require lifetime license holders 70 years of age or older to submit an application to the department to obtain the licenses and permits that are currently included in their senior lifetime license. So as an example, if they wanted to hunt antlerless deer, they would need to actually apply for and obtain that permit from the department, whereas right now, in the case of the expanded archery permits for antlerless deer, they are not required to do that. Scrolling down to the next section, this notification clause would require lifetime license holders to notify the department in each year that he or she would exercise the authority granted by that license, and also to update their personal information with the department. You'll see here that we included hunting, trapping, and fishing, and those would all need to be considerations in terms of whether the committee wanted to include those other activities in addition to just hunting or not. So scrolling down to complementary and reduced rate licenses, there's a number of categories here where permits are currently included in these licenses. The first is residents over 70 years of age, and you can see here that those complementary licenses for that category includes pheasant hunting permits, muzzleloading permits, bear hunting permits, etc. So again, we would suggest that that those license holders actually apply for and receive those permits from the department in order to indicate their intention to participate in the hunting of those species. And also, again, similar to lifetime license holders, we would propose that holders of those complementary licenses notify the department in each year that he or she wanted to exercise the authority granted by that license and to update their contact information with us. There's numerous categories here. I won't sort of belabor all of these other than just to indicate what those categories are, but we would need to make similar changes or need to consider making similar changes to complementary licenses issued to blind residents of the state, to paraplegics. And please stop me if you'd like me to slow down. Again, this is just to illustrate the areas of statute where there would need to be a consideration. Disabled veterans, again, that license includes numerous permits with a license, and currently those licenses do not need to be renewed with the department, but having the license holder do so would certainly make a self-reporting system for big game work much more smoothly. Members of the Indian tribes, sort of a similar situation, both a notification annually as well as indicating their intention to utilize the permit authorities included with the license would be important. Persons with developmental disabilities and persons with an acquired brain injury and persons in the custody of DHHS. This is the landowner issue. So currently, as I'm sure the committee members know, landowners on their own land can hunt without a license. We would propose that those landowners actually be required to obtain a license from the department. So we would know who is participating and be able to contact them, and they would do so at no charge to the landowner. We would have to figure out a system to actually do that and operationalize it. So there was no charge incurred. This is just some general language under subsection 6 to indicate that a license holder that has a license that includes other licenses or permits must actually apply for and receive those from the department in order to indicate their intention to exercise that authority. And I believe this is the last area in statute. This is for junior hunters who, again, currently have a number of authorities included in their license that we would request they have to indicate their intention to actually utilize their authorities. I missed one here. This is the apprentice license that includes both bear and wild turkey permits. So that would be another one. And just one more example here is these are the department rules in chapter 16, and I won't go through each of these, but that we believe would need to be reviewed and updated in order to actually implement self-reporting for big game. So all the places in department rule that would be sort of touched by this issue. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and just close out with a few final comments, and I'm happy to take questions. So thoroughly considering all of those issues that I outlined and developing statutory policy and operational changes to address them will take a significant amount of time. Therefore, if the committee does want to move forward with electronic self-reporting for big game, we would request the opportunity to come back to the committee in January of 2023 with proposed changes to the statutory framework for hunting licenses and permits, and to carefully consider all of the other operational aspects associated with those potential changes. Although addressing these issues are critical for a self-reporting registration system for big game, they would also benefit a self-reporting system for wild turkey. Therefore, if the legislature decides to move forward with electronic self-reporting of deer and turkey, we would request that these issues are addressed for both species. We feel it would be inefficient and confusing for hunters if we developed a system to allow self-reporting for wild turkey, only to develop a second system for deer or other big game a year later. Therefore, if the committee does want to move forward for turkey as well as other big game species, we strongly recommend a delay in the timeline for allowing self-reporting of turkey until these changes can be made. In other words, we feel that we can move forward with a system for turkey alone in 2023, but implementing a system for turkey as well as other species should be delayed until 2024. And just to wrap up, some other considerations for the committee to think about, which we've discussed previously in our deliberations on wild turkey, would be the loss in revenue from tagging fees, a potential decline in the number of in-person stations due to a decline in the number of hunters that actually utilize the in-person network of tagging stations, the additional staff time required to provide technical assistance to hunters using the self-reporting system, and the staff time required to collect biological data, and the additional funding required to collect biological data and to survey hunters. And finally, there are numerous enforcement and compliance related issues with this discussion. And if the committee would like to hear from Colonel Scott, I think he could outline those in much more detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nate. Representative Martin, you had a question?
A question and a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate, the question is directed to you or to anyone that can answer. I guess my first question would be, were you present Tuesday when we discussed these bills, these matters?
I was, yes.
Are you aware that the committee, I believe unanimously, maybe not, I think there might have been some opposition, directed the department to work with our analyst to come up with two separate bills, one on electronic tagging for turkeys and electronic tagging for big game. And then we would go to the presiding officers and a bill would be presented, public hearing would be held. I just wondering if you were aware of that, because this is the third presentation the department has made regarding conceptual language.
I was Representative Martin. In fact, Julia does have draft language to share with you, I believe, next. So we have worked with Julia on several versions of statutory language for both turkey and big game.
So to you or to either, or maybe Julia, it is my understanding that a draft of a piece of legislation on both bills will be presented to this committee. A public hearing would be held, and then a work session will be held. Is that your understanding of what the committee directed folks to do?
That is my understanding, yes.
Thank you so much.
Representative Lyford.
Thank you. Nate, could you tell me approximately what it costs to set up a tagging station?
Great question, Representative Lyford. There's really minimal costs. The station is required to have a connection to the internet because our current system is web-based, so that there's an electronic interface they use. So they need that basic capability. They need a laptop or a tablet or some other device to allow entry of the information. We provide them with a game registration sign for them to post, in front of their establishment to indicate that they're, that they're open for registering big game. Beyond that, it's really department staff time to train the clerks that are using the system. Usually, essentially in every case, we do an in-person training and then follow up as they're sort of becoming more comfortable with the system with remote tech support until they're sort of up and running. So the cost to the department is relatively minimal, other than some staff time for training.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Camuso.
Thank you, Representative Landry. And I just wanted to follow up on Representative Martin's comments. And the department has been working with Julia. And as Nate pointed out in the beginning of his presentation, the statutory change necessary to enable in-person or self-reporting is quite simple. The complicated piece are all the other issues that Nate addressed. So we want to make sure that the committee is fully understanding of all the complexities that are going to go along with making the system actually function. So the statutory change is relatively simple to enable self-reporting. To make the system work is extremely complicated. And so that's why we have spent a tremendous amount of time trying to help people understand all the layers of complexity associated with this change. And Representative Landry, if possible, I would like to have Colonel Scott address some of the compliance issues associated with this change.
Certainly, we'll get to him. Senator Black had a question before we get to him, though.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I've got some questions about the complications of what has, whether it's required statutory or whether it's just information that the department would like to see. But I think I will defer that until after I hear what Julia and the department have come up for statutorial changes. But I would ask Nate, at this time, we already are doing online registrations, big game for guides in certain areas. Is that not true?
Thank you, Senator Black. So to clarify, we have established or set up a number of guides as tagging stations. So they are a station just like a corner store or a sporting goods store. They are set up to tag big game animals for their clients and for the general public as well that may need to make use of that location. We have not set up guides with a system that allows them to simply self-report their own harvest. They have the exact same system that regular tagging stations have. They sign a station agreement with the agency that outlines their responsibilities, the requirements that they need to meet. I believe we have about 24 of those scattered across the state as part of our network of in-person tagging stations.
Follow up. So that means that if there is a guy tagging their own bear, then they would have to tag my bear or my moose or my deer.
That is correct. The extent at which that actually happens, it varies quite a bit. There are some guides and outfitting businesses that routinely tag a significant number of animals harvested by the general public. There are others that, due to their location, which in some cases is very remote, they tag very few, if any, animals that are not harvested as part of their guide and outfitting business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Julia, did you want to go next or?
Yes, I think Representative Landry, it may be helpful to look at the draft at this time.
Yes.
And if you agree, I'm happy to share it. What I'm going to pull up is the changes that would be made to the registration chapter. Is everyone able to see this?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the first change that would be made is here, and this is directing the department to adopt rules that would be governing electronic tagging that would begin in 2024. You'll see I have deer highlighted in blue, and the reason for that is that this draft structure could be used in a flexible way that could say deer and bear or deer and moose, whichever big game are chosen. Moving through the section, what that continuously does is reflect that rule adoption that will happen that is implementing electronic tagging of deer by 2024. And the final is adding an unallocated section here. And in order to implement electronic tagging in 2024, there will be additional changes. Those are what Dr. Webb ran through, and as well as others, and having a presentation and report on what the department with jurisdiction over inland fisheries and wildlife should do to begin electronic tagging by 2024. I thought that might help clarify the discussion as we move forward.
Very good. Thank you, Representative Martin. Did you have a question? You're muted. You're muted. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Just a comment. I just wanted the committee members to know my sole purpose in asking or making those comments was to, because what's taking place this morning is we're going to be discussing and asking questions on draft legislation. And again, when that is made fully printed and all that, we're going to be discussing this again. So I just wanted to make sure that we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss during the public hearing, if one is held, and during the work session on these matters. But it's my understanding, based on what we're seeing and what we're hearing from Julia and the department, the issue on electronic tagging of big game will be solely limited to deer. Is that correct, Julia, or the department?
I believe that's at the discretion of the committee, but also to clarify, the option that Representative Martin is, I believe, speaking about is that you can report out for reference back a committee bill, which you can do so today, and it can be added to the summary that the committee is taking no stance on the substance of that bill, and it would then be assigned an LD number and go through the regular process where it would have a public hearing and a work session, but the committee is not making a decision as to the substance of the bill itself.
Yeah, you're right, Julia, and that's my understanding as to what the direction of the committee was. So there will be two separate bills. There will be public hearing on those bills and work sessions on those bills, correct?
The committee would need to vote to do so, but if the committee voted that way, then yes, that is what the bill would follow through. Currently, turkey on Monday was reported out for reference. We'll review that. It wasn't yet, but we'll review the language on Monday, and we'll begin that process. And then today for debate is the big game potential committee bill.
Correct. So the committee would have to move forward and determine whether or not they want to move forward with a piece of legislation on electronic tagging of big games. Is that correct?
With the majority.
I guess, Julie, I thought we had done that Tuesday, but maybe not. Maybe we just took a vote on the turkey bill Tuesday.
A vote was taken for turkey, but not for big game. With a majority vote today, the committee could decide to use its authority to create a committee bill on big game.
Great. Thank you so much.
Commissioner, I see you've been waiting a while.
Thank you, Representative. I just wanted to remind the committee of two other outstanding issues that will impact self-reporting of big game, and that is the antlerless deer permit revision that is in front of you, that you had the public hearing for on Monday. So any self-reporting system is only going to be successful if we make it as simple or as least complicated as we can for the users. And so there's a couple key components of that bill that you have not voted on that would need to move forward before, we would need those tools in place to simplify the system. And so some of the principal ones being the minimizing 180,000 permits and the transferring and swapping of those permits. So keep in mind that what we presented today isn't actually completely thorough because we're sort of this other law is up in the air still. Likewise, the changes that the department is proposing to crossbow and the definition for crossbow and aligning that with archery is also substantial changes to Title 12, but that would also really be helpful to have that completed so that the system could be as simple and as user-friendly as possible. And I still would like for Colonel Scott to be able to comment if possible.
Okay, well, we've been holding them there in the dark for a while. Why don't we go ahead with Colonel Scott?
Thank you. Can you folks hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thanks. So I'll just, Senator Dill and Representative Landry, I appreciate the opportunity just to weigh in on some of the other challenges that will come up with self-reporting. It is without question a convenience to the hunter. There's no doubt about that. And I think that it's one that some folks have requested in the past as well. But as far as the list of benefits for law enforcement, the self-reporting, the list is fairly short. The laws around and rules around tagging, transportation, and registration of big game animals are important because they actually regulate the very moment that when a publicly owned resource is reduced to the possession of an individual. So game registration agents are actually functioning as agents of the commissioner, and they're often integral in identifying illegally taken game. And that's important because just prior to them taking it, obviously it was a public resource which we all own and have interest in, and afterwards it's reduced to their possession. So beyond collecting biological data, which you've heard a lot about, registration agents personally speak to each hunter who is registering an animal. Through the game registration process, potential violations are often apparent, especially those including false registration of animals, animals killed without proper permits, animals killed in the wrong wildlife management districts, and animals killed outside legal hunting hours. Over the last several years, we have developed a method by which registration agents can flag a registered animal and immediately forward it to the main warden service if they feel that there is something amiss about it. This occurs many, many times during the course of the season, and it permits a game warden to quickly obtain information around the potential violation, and they're able to begin looking into it immediately. like with many fish and wildlife investigations, we're more successful the more timely the game warden can learn of a potential violation in close proximity of when it actually occurred. Registration agents also physically attach a tag to each animal, verifying its sex, age, and anything that may look suspicious. The agents are in close contact with the hunters, their vehicle, as well as other persons in the party, and often supply my staff with important investigative information around violation. Registration stations themselves are funnel points for which the game has to funnel through once it's been killed. Again, that public resource is just reduced to the possession of a private individual, but it needs to be funneled to a central location. Quite often, landowners will call and report a violation. They may just have a vehicle description, but they won't know anything else about it, just potentially shooting too close, shooting from a vehicle, deer driving, etc. Our staff are focused on registration stations at this point to initiate our investigations, knowing that any illegally taken game needs to funnel through these stations in order to be properly registered. And so they serve as funnel points for all the animals that are taken. Once a person gets a deer or other big game home and realize they did so undetected, the temptation to have someone else register the deer for them would be greater than ever, especially considering the fact that the person who's actually registering the deer now no longer needs to come face to face with an agent or the commissioner to complete the actual process. We do feel that with self-reporting, we anticipate that there will be an increase in violations and likely a decrease in our detection rate. On top of all that, once the animal is registered, whether it's self-reported or in person, how are we going to manage virtual registration seals? There's a reason why the seals that we have today are rugged seals that go on and stay on. These deer are all then brought to either taxidermists, butchers, transported around the state, brought to residences. And we feel that the system of virtual registration seals will make the identification of legal game as opposed to non-legal game more difficult as well. If we do move in this direction, which there does sound like there's some interest in it, there are some questions that we would bring up that could potentially help us in the law enforcement scheme, and that is, do we actually need to offer 18 hours for registration times, similar to the in-person times that are currently in place? Most of us on this call probably remember when it was 12 hours and it was extended to 18 in order to give people time to work around work schedules and school, etc. But the onset of self-reporting should be almost instantaneous or until you get a cell signal. We also considered potential for license suspension penalties for registering a deer which you did not kill or allow someone else to register for you. We know that the court systems are jammed up and monetary fines don't often deter folks, but looking at suspensions of licenses could potentially deter some of that increased violations that we expect. And then some other little bit thinking it further outside the box. I'm not sure exactly how it would work in the state of Maine, but some states actually require any animal that's going to be self-reported through an electronic system over an app or a phone or the web-based reporting would be for that to occur before the deer was actually transported out of the field. So it's almost serves as a transportation tag that if you kill a deer and you have sufficient cell phone coverage, you could register it at that time. If you chose to not do that, you would follow the current laws that we have of applying a registration tag to a transportation tag and going to an in-person agent. So those are just some of the concerns that we have on the law enforcement end. I know we've talked about some of those in the past, but I just wanted to reiterate them. We do expect violations would increase because they'd be more easy to make and our detection rate would decrease. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Scott. Commissioner?
Thank you, Representative. And I do, and I realize this is a lengthy discussion, but I do want to just bring up some of the business practices or the decisions that the department will have to make should the committee direct us to move forward with electronic tagging of big game. And many of these situations right now are in existence because one law gets passed and then another one gets passed. And, you know, as we expand opportunity, things get more and more complicated. And so an example I'll give you is in October, an archer hunts a buck and goes to register that animal, and they happen to have harvested it in the expanded zone. So are they harvesting that animal under their expanded license or their regular license? And if they register it, self-report it under their regular license, come November, they can no longer hunt. So there are a lot of decisions like that that we're going to have to work through as an agency that are pretty quite complicated, and that they deserve time and you know, a thoughtful discussion. And so I will, if possible, ask Bill Swan to address the group and just talk through some of those different business decisions that will have to be made.
Certainly. Linda, could you bring in Bill Swan?
He is on screen, a representative.
It's kind of foggy there, but oh, there he is.
Yes, good morning. Bill Swan, Director of Licensing. You heard from Nate quite a number of different things that we would have to address. Essentially, what we're looking to do here is if we're going to do this, we want to have a system that essentially works seamlessly for virtually 100% of the people that would attempt to do it. So right now you have a situation where the tagging station personnel have a lot of additional training that we can do for them so that they are able to handle some of these you know, obscure situations and ask a series of questions to try to figure out how to tag the animal appropriately. Well, now you're going to move to a place where instead of having 250 or so tagging stations that make this decision, you're going to have thousands and thousands of individuals that maybe this might be the first time that they've tagged an animal having to make these decisions. So I think the bottom line is that to make this work seamlessly for the average person, we really need to simplify a lot of the things that we're doing with our licensing, permits, and with game registration. So if you have specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but just suffice it to say that we have a lot of complexity in our systems right now, and we have them because we're offering a tremendous amount of opportunity to our sportsmen, you know, and with increased opportunities do come complexities. So that's kind of the bottom line, and just want people to think about that.
Thank you, Bill. Representative Lightfoot, I see you had your hand up previously.
Well, thank you, Representative. I wanted to jump back to the Colonel. I was just curious to see how has the relationship been with the Guides Association, you know, because a lot of that is quite remote. Have you had good success with them tagging?
We traditionally over the years have had outstanding success with all of our tagging agents because we understand that they're a funnel point, that a lot of animals will go through those agents, and we have very close personal relationships with them. I mean, it's not uncommon for on busy harvest days like Saturdays or holidays for game wardens to go and spend a considerable amount of time at a tagging agent because we know that a lot of animals are going to filter through there. Understand that when you, as Dr. Webb pointed out, when you say guides tagging in remote areas, they're just another tagging agent. So just because you have an outfitter, but they're working under the same rules and the same contract as potentially the Irving on Route 15 in Corinth. So we maintain the same relationship with them tagging animals as we do with all of our other in-person tagging stations. And they're just as important and collect just as much information because again, when somebody brings them an animal, it's in person, they're an agent of the commissioner at that point. They need to document the information, and they actually handle the animal, speak with the person registering it, and snap the tag on themselves. So we have excellent relationships with our guides who act as tagging agents. It's very helpful to have them out in some of the more remote areas. But again, they're operating under the same guidelines and contract as all of our other 250 tagging agents, and we maintain a close relationship with all of them because we know that those are funnel points for all the big game which are taken in the state.
Just to follow up, if I could.
Yes.
So the guides aren't tagging stations just for their clients. There can be tagging stations for anybody in the area.
Correct. And many of them, depending on their location, only tag for their clients, but many others, depending on where they're located, if there's a lot of public around and there's a lot of game taken, also register animals for the general public, similar to a corner store, as Dr. Webb had pointed out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dill, at one point you had your hand up. Are you still?
I think it's mostly probably we'll have the discussion at the end where we're going as far as this. Like I think Representative Martin has asked several times, is this a big game tagging bill? Is it a deer tagging bill? And I think we need to have that discussion as we decide whether we're going to do a bill or not. So, and even if it went forward as a deer tagging bill, certainly while we have a public hearing on it, we can change it or vice versa. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Representative Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have one question to Senator Dill, who chaired our last discussion on this on Tuesday. On Tuesday, Senator, the committee voted to move forward and instructed the department to draft a piece of legislation that we can digest and further discuss and hold a public hearing on electronic tagging of turkey. That's my understanding. The next move after the department finalizes their presentation, and of course, this is the fourth presentation that they've made on this, and it's great discussion. But please understand that if we move forward, if the committee directs the department to move forward on electronic tagging of deer or big game or whatever, that a bill will be produced and we will be further discussing this during the public hearing and work session. So, Mr. Chair, would not the next step be, after the department and after the committee members have asked all their questions and made comments, to have a committee vote on whether or not we want to move forward on electronic tagging of big game or deer? Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's what I thought I just said, but that's fine. That's what we will do today, is if we want to move forward. At that point, we'd go back just like we did with turkey and instruct Julia to work with the department. And in the meantime, if we say we want to move forward, then that will go back to the floor so that we can actually vote it out and it be referred back to us while they're putting the meat for us to react, which is what happened, I believe, with the turkey bill. Is that correct, Julia? Is it already started to move forward, but we're waiting for the wording?
Yes, that's correct, Senator Dill. On Monday, the committee voted to report out a bill on turkey tagging.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, are we in a position to vote to move forward with a deer and big game electronic tagging bill? Representative Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize that there are problematic issues on whatever the department is going to produce, but it would be great if the committee would move forward and at least have a bill that we can hold a public hearing on. And I'm assuming the bill that would be drafted would be something that the department could live with. So yes, I think we ought to have a further discussion on a piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
I think I'd like to see more discussion among the committee. I have some big reservations on this, whether to even move forward at all.
Yes, Julia.
I was going to ask for some direction if the committee was about to take a vote, but it looks like you may not be, and then I'll wait and ask my questions at that time if I still need to.
Well, how does the committee feel about moving forward with a bill? Senator Black?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand Representative Ordway's concern about discussion, but as Representative Martin has said, this is our fourth discussion on this, and we can have more discussion with a public hearing and a work session. So I would make a motion at this time that we move ahead with electronic tagging for big game.
Deer and big game.
Deer and big game.
And Mr. Chair, I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? I'm sure we're going to have more discussion down the road, but seeing nothing, Linda, you want to call a vote?
I certainly will. Representative Lyford,
No.
Representative Mason,
Yes.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Senator Curry is absent. Senator Black,
Yes.
Senator Dill,
Yes.
Representative Landry,
Yes.
Representative Terrio,
Yes.
Representative Danny Martin,
Yes.
Representative Ordway,
No.
Representative Valley,
You're muted.
I'll continue on and come back to Representative Valley.
Yeah.
Representative Nadeau
Yes.
and Representative John Martin. Oh, he has left temporarily,
Okay.
so he is absent.
There's Representative Valley.
Okay, I'm back.
And your
Can you
vote,
hear me?
sir? Yes.
Okay, I'm voting yes.
Okay. So next to you. So 9 in favor, 2 opposed, and 2 absent.
Very good. Then Julia, you'll work with the department.
Yes, I'm happy to bring back language but the draft that we have will be that I went through will be the basis for that.
Very good. Thank you. Linda, do you have anything else for us?
I do not.
Yeah. Before we leave, I'll go back to you folks in a minute. Senator Dill and I received letters from the president and the speaker of the House concerning committee decorum, the rules that we should be following. And they leave it up to us whether to discuss it and go through it with you. But Senator Dill and I both agree that we don't have these issues in our committee. We are very lucky. We respect each other and we don't pick on people. So we're not going to bore you with that unless somebody wants to hear it. Senator Dill.
I just wanted to be clear with Julia that I believe we voted two things into just now. One was that you will work with the department to give us language, and also that we are going forward with a bill so you can do the paperwork for that too.
Yes, I understood that as the vote. Thank you, Senator Dill.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
And that language the language that we saw was for deer, but the language that's going to come up is going to be for big game.
That's correct. The committee voted for a big game bill.
Senator Dill.
I was actually going to say the same thing, so he beat me to it, so it's good. Thanks.
Okay, good. Bill Swan, do you have your hand up?
I don't think so. I'm not seeing my hand on my screen, but.
Oh, maybe it's my mouse floating around or something. Okay. Is there anything else to come before us today? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
Make a motion, we break.
I have a motion. Is there a second? And I have a second from Representative Hepler. All those in favor, raise your hand and we will dismiss. Thank you all.